Yeah.
Well, and it's also sort of, well, in life, so few things happen the way you want them to, and then you either look back on it and you go like, okay, it was meant to kind of happen that way, and you're cool with it,
Hmm.
or you're not cool with it. But like I'm saying, as someone who was around at that time and like remembers that record, my next question is, was the recording of that record as effortless as it sounds to me as like a fan and like a listener? Just because like I think there's a reason why Texas is loved, and I it was just that time, that special music, those songs, those people, like does that, like, is what I'm saying like, hey, like you got these same thoughts, or am I totally off the mars?
Yeah, well, I definitely we definitely were like, we hit that ball of energy at the right time for sure, and it was definitely something that just was natural. Yeah, and I feel that like we played so much before that we recorded. And did we do the tour, like the first tour, and come back and go, and we went to the studio, and I think we were very heavily rehearsed. We toured on it, we like played a lot of those songs. There was only a few songs that we didn't really we weren't playing live then, that we had to like finish in the studio. um but I remember walking into Oz Studios, which, we knew the records, like, the Girls Against Boys records and the Shudder Things records, and the DC records that were done there. Um, that we all loved, and going in there knowing that Jay Robbins from Jawbox was going to be behind the door. And I like Norm talked to him before. I think maybe Garrett and Chris also talked to him, but I other than seeing him play in Jawbox, I had no relationship, you know, um, with him at all. So I was a little intimidated, not knowing, like, he didn't seem like a bad person or a scary person, but it's like, oh, we're here to work. And also, especially then, I was 20 something years old, 23 years old, and not really a musician per se. Like, I had not studied, the musician. I don't really know how to, I didn't, like, I don't know my scales and my, you know, I might even have been at that point. I might have been like, it's at the third fret on the first string or the second fret on the, like the second, where are you? Like, oh, so like, it was probably, at that point, it was very like, rudimentary learning, you know, so I was probably a lot of that, a lot of like, what am I shouldn't, like, imposter syndrome. Like, I shouldn't be in this place with, wasted everybody's time. um, but I will say, like, Jay and Drew, Drew did the stuff, and Jay was the, producer. You know, it was smooth. I got my stuff done fast. I felt really comfortable doing it. Jay made me feel like confident about playing, and I feel, I toned into my amp, and I had my bass, and he was like, this sounds great. Like, he was really into it. Like, I didn't have to, like, I saw, I was like, oh wow. Like, so like it all kind of like, and I felt like that was like the whole vibe. Like, we just, there was very few tweaking, like, things, like, I think we more or less used the amps that we toured with, you know that to record with, and just a few little things that were added on. There was some key, like, little piano things, and you know Jay did some feedback stuff. I also left and came back, like, like, while they were, I wasn't there for the mixing. Like, I was just there for the tracking, and then I left. I was like, oh, I'm gonna go. Like, me and Chris had like some work. We could like, I think we were like, oh, we can go get some, we could do work, make some money, like, at our job. So we like drove back, and then we came back and picked Garrett and Norm up, like, after the mixing. And like, I think we like remember like first hearing it on the way back in the car, like, after like that. So like, yeah, I didn't I didn't get punished through the whole mixing period, so I don't have any stories about that. You know, my stories was like, oh yeah, you want carrot dressing or you know, house tahini, you know.
Was there like, because it seemed this way to me, was there like interest from bigger labels, like from, I don't know about from the start, but it seemed like pretty early? That's, once again, that's my read on it as someone that's friends with you guys and was kind of around the situation.
Yes, and at our first show, you know, like well, you know, Mike Gitter was there, but was he there because we were friendly with him already, or was he there for a job? But also, he was there with the woman who like managed Nirvana at some point, or signed Nirvana to something or something. You know, like worked with Nirvana at some point, or the Smashing Pumpkins, or one of the other the big one of the big grunge alternative bands, and it was like, oh, like so they were there. And then I remember like at the second show that they were there, so there was always like people like involved. And we had a good friend David who he worked at record labels like forever, and like he was just always kind of around. And so like he was like my good friend, especially like he put out the Gray House 7 inch, and then we just we were friends ever since. But he ended up working at Hollywood Records, and he works at a big record label. He's a vice president of artists and A&R or something. That I don't know his exact title, it's fancy, but it's that's what he still does it. One of the few that I can say that I remember that still do it. But yeah, there was a lot, and there was a lot also of us like pushing people away and saying no, and like we're not interested. And
was that just because, like, was that just sort of knowing like flat out, okay, this is just not going to be right for us? Like we're not a band that's going to do that. Like I don't mean not signing, but I mean like the pushing away. We're going to get to the not signing next, but like
yeah,
the pushing away part.
well, I think the pushing away was us being like pompous, a little bit like, oh, get out of our, we don't want this. So like, and it wasn't even that we don't want this. I think it was like, not yet. Hold on. Like there's a really weird thing. As young and naive and as silly we were, there was a lot of like maturity and smart things that we were like onto and that we knew of. But there was a
Do
thing.
you think that hardcore was a part of that? Like a part of that mindset? Like that had sort of at least kind of clued you into being onto those things?
Hardcore definitely made us like think twice first. Like, wait a second, no. And and also like, Fugazi was definitely, and is still definitely, it was like, hey, let's do this, but let's figure out how can we do this and not like break the tilt the Fugazi pinball game. So like that, I think that was like the whole like which is funny because there was one time we were doing like some like college radio interview, and